Hello and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer. Say kids, have you heard about that new restaurant called Karma? There's no menu, you get what you deserve. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at my top 100 games of all time. Specifically, we're going to be looking at my number 70 through 61. All right, kids, let's jump right into it. My number 70 is Victory and Glory, Napoleon. This is from Forbidden Games. It's a Glenn Drover design. Victory and Glory is a really fun game that you're kind of not expecting it to be what it is. Initially, there was, I believe, a Kickstarter, and this was going to be a pretty standard dudes on a map game. Drover had created a game earlier. Was it Age of Napoleon is what it was called? And it was kind of just, typical dudes on a map game. And this game honestly plays a lot more like Twilight Struggle. Now, you do have military units you are committing to battles here, but it plays differently. It's kind of Euro-y in that respect, but you got the different tracks, your economic track, your logistical track, all these different tracks that you're trying to keep track of. And you're scoring points, and you have scoring rounds, and you're each playing cards. You're each playing cards back and forth to kind of maneuver to advantage, to move your kind of political control, your cubes around, and whatnot, and then fight the battles. But critically, during the scoring, you're trying to score enough points that are worth different points at different times in the game. And so in a sense, it almost feels... the history of it almost kind of feels scripted, but the game doesn't feel scripted. The gameplay doesn't feel scripted. It feels very much like you have choices throughout, and the game does get harder for the French. The French start out really strong, and then they get kind of weaker as the game goes on. So it's if you're the Allies, you're kind of playing defense at the beginning, and then increasingly you're going to play offense. But there's still good choices here, and there's still a lot of things that can happen. I really enjoyed Victory and Glory, Napoleon, a very fun game from the Napoleonic era. That is my number 70 from Forbidden Games. My number 69 is a game that I was really hoping we'd see a lot of expansions to, but we never did. This is from Fantasy Flight Game. This is Forbidden Stars. Fantasy Flight Games kind of lost the IP with Games Workshop, and so they lost the rights to the theme for this game, and so we won't see any expansions. I don't know if Games Workshop can reprint it or what have you. Maybe we will, but I'm not optimistic. But this is a fun game. It's a Warhammer 40k game. It's a good kind of space opera game. And what I liked about it, though, is it's got this system where you're trying to figure out what actions to take. And so you place your actions in these tokens down on the different spaces. But you got to make sure it all goes down in the right order, because other people are placing their tokens on there, and so when your tokens come up, if they're not in the right order, it can screw over. So there's kind of a programming aspect to it. But I really enjoyed it. Great, solid theme, good gameplay, and it's got a fun combat system. A little long, sometimes the combat can go, but it's still a lot of fun. So I really recommend Forbidden Stars. That is my number 69 from Fantasy Flight Games. My number 68 was also from Fantasy Flight Games. This is Letters from Whitechapel. Letters from Whitechapel is, of course, a game about Jack the Ripper. It's hidden movement, and every night Jack the Ripper has to find his way back from a victim to his hideout, and the cops are trying to locate him, and they're on his trail. This is a hidden movement game, and it's one of the better hidden movement games. I always compare it to Fury of Dracula. I like Fury of Dracula better, but I do like this one quite a bit. This is it's just a scary game. In fact, I've never played a game, including Fury of Dracula, I've never played a game where I was personally felt as an intense emotion. I played this game as Jack once, and I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I literally thought I was going to have a heart attack because I was sweating, my heart was beating. It's a tough game to play. It's a scary game to play as Jack when they're hunting you. But it's a fun game, and I really enjoy it quite a bit. But this is Letters from Whitechapel. That is number 68. That is from Fantasy Flight Games. My number 67 is another game that just came out last year. This is Europe Divided from Phalanx Games. Europe Divided is kind of the new Cold War. It's between the United States and Russia from 1990 or thereabouts until roughly the present day. but it kind of deals with a lot of real world issues. One side plays Russia, the United States. The other side plays the United States and NATO, or Western Europe or NATO. And what you're trying to do is uh, it's area control. You're trying to gain the most influence in different spots on the board, and you do this with die. You have a number of die that you don't roll, but rather you use them to show what your influence is. And then you're trying to lock in that influence. And depending on these different kind of issue cards that come up, you're going to go ahead and you're going to score points off of them. But again, it's another tremendously fun game, card-driven game that you're trying to get those more influence there. There's some military stuff you can do. It's a fun game. I really enjoyed Europe Divided quite a bit. And it's from David Thompson, who's done some other great games. I'm sure we'll see some more on this list. But this is Europe Divided. That is my number 67 from Phalanx Games. My number 67 is Mystery of the Abbey. Mystery of the Abbey. This is a game that is a lot like Clue. But it's much better because you can ask questions and you're trying to deduce things based on the specific questions you're asking. Essentially, you know that a monk committed murder in this abbey and you're trying to figure out which monk it is. And you each have these sheets that have, bearded monks or hooded monks or fat monks or thin monks. And so you're trying to narrow it down. You're saying, well, do you have any cards that, have the fat monk? And they'll say yes or no, and that'll kind of help to narrow down. Well, okay, well, I've got this one, and I know he's got that one, and he's got that one. But it's a good kind of process of elimination game, and it's so much more interesting, I think, than Clue, because, like I say, it's you've got more options, and you've got more choices, and more things you can do. So it makes it a better game. So this is Mystery of the Abbey, and that is my 66. That is from Days of Wonder. My number 65 is a game that I just played here quite recently. Again, came out last year. This is Shores of Tripoli from Fort Circle Games. Shores of Tripoli is awesome. It is a kind of an area control war game where it's card driven, where you are essentially trying. One of you takes on the role of the Barbary Pirates, the other side of the United States. And you're playing cards that help you to maneuver your armies. The Barbary pirates are trying to collect gold. They attack a neutral shipping, and they can take that gold and out of their coffers. If they get all the gold, they win. But the United States is trying to raise an Arab army that's going to go and attack them. And again, this is another game that kind of feels like the history scripted. To meet the history, but the gameplay never does. The gameplay, you feel like you got good choices throughout. Occasionally you can kind of feel hemmed in a little bit, but even then, nothing's a sure thing. But it's a fantastic game. Shores of Tripoli is a lot of fun. Again, this is another one that kind of feels like it's kind of like Twilight Struggle, kind of like both Europe Divided and Napoleon Victory and Glory felt like kind of had a Twilight Struggle thing going on there. Really enjoyed it. This is Shores of Tripoli, and they're actually making the Halls of Montezuma's coming out in a year or two, and I'm really excited for that one as well. So this is Shores of Tripoli. This is my number 65 from Fort Circle Games. My number 64 is another classic from Days of Wonder. This is Memoir 44. Memoir 44, of course, is a Commands and Colors game set in World War II. You play the different cards that allow you to move on the different flanks, right, left, and then the center. And you're rolling die, you're attacking your enemy, but you're kind of limited to those cards you've got in your hand. But it's a tremendously fun game, and it's a light, good introductory war game. This is probably the lightest of the Commands and Colors series, and with the minis, I think it's pretty accessible. And so I think it's a good way if you're not sure how to get into wargaming. Commands and Colors games are a good place to start, and the best one, the most accessible one, I think, is Memoir 44, and the theme is, of course, fantastic. So that is number 44 or number 64, Memoir 44 from Days of Wonder. My number 63 is the first deck building game I played that really turned me on to deck builders and really said this is a cool, fun genre of game. And this is the DC Comics deck building game from Cryptozoic Entertainment. I played many iterations, if not all of the iterations of the DC Comics deck building game, and they're all fun in their own ways. It's a very basic game, and the criticism, of course, it's not terribly thematic. I don't care. It's still a lot of fun, and I think the best one of the bunch is still probably the first one. The first one probably remains my favorite. It is, though. It's just great fun. It's a wonderful, wonderful superhero deck building game where you can build fun combinations, and really that's what deck building is about, is you want to build fun combinations with the cards, and you do that so well here. But it's light and it's portable. It's a game you can play anywhere. I play this game in restaurants and parks. It's a great, quick, easy to set up, easy to take down deck builder, and I always have fun with this game every single time I play it. In fact, the last night I was in Texas before I left with some friends. I played this game and had a ball. So again, that is my number 63. That is a DC Comics deck building game from Cryptozoic Entertainment. My number 62 is Napoleon Returns 1815. This is, of course, the Waterloo campaign. You've got Wellington and Blucher on one side, Napoleon on the other. You are maneuvering your troops around the board. Napoleon's got secret objectives that the Allies don't know where they are, so they're trying to defend everything. Napoleon's trying to maneuver to destroy them, and the Allies are trying to defend, but they don't know what to defend. But it's a great game because when you get into combat, you're playing the cards, you're playing the matching game, right? Like in Hannibal and Hamilcar. You're playing the games of, okay, well, I'm going to play, a skirmish card. You've got to match it with a skirmish card. Okay, I'm playing a grand battery. You've got to match the grand battery. I'm playing a cavalry charge. You've got to match it. And the first person who can't match it, then they lose the battle, and then you kind of your casualties are based upon how many cards you played in the round. But it's a lot of fun. It's a great, again, fairly light and accessible war game that I had a lot of fun with. So this is Napoleon 1815 from Worthington Games. My number 61 is another game from Fantasy Flight Games, and this is one that came out a couple of years ago. Really enjoyed it, not least of all because of the IP. This is Star Wars Outer Rim. Star Wars Outer Rim is a fantastic game, and unlike, say, Star Wars Rebellion or Armada, which is a great contest between the Rebels and the Empire, this is a game of smugglers. It's kind of a pick up and deliver game, but it's also a game that it's fun solo. I think I play this game at every player count, and I've had fun at every player count. I've enjoyed it at every player count. My only caveat is there's not enough content for it. I played it so much that I kind of know pretty much most of the cards, and I was really hoping by this point we'd see, if nothing else, like a little card deck expansion that gave us a little more of the story. But that hasn't happened yet. But hopefully they will. Hopefully we'll get more to this game sooner rather than later, because it's just a fantastic game and it needs more content. But it's fun. Go ahead, pick it up. If you like Star Wars, you're really going to get a kick out of this game. So that is my number 61. That is Star Wars Outer Rim from Fantasy Flight Games. Thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. Please let me know what you think of my list. Do you like my recommendations? Do you disagree with them? I'm always excited to hear what your thoughts are as well. So go ahead, leave a comment here on YouTube, on Facebook, wherever you see this video, on Board Game Geek. Love to hear back from you. Also, if you are interested in military history and World War II, I'd recommend you check out my other channel, Cody Carlson, PhD, where we look at some of those themes and ideas as well. So please check that out and subscribe. Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you this one last question. Why do you suppose people that know calculus are the most responsible people on the road? Simple. They don't drink and derive. Please somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band. God knows that I love to fight, but I don't ever win. It's a fine line.
I bet Cody's favorite game will be making all of us read some damn World War field journal or something. You're not my dad, Cody. Not anymore.